Imagine this. You reach into your pocket, grab a single Washington quarter, and without knowing it, you're holding a coin that could be worth more than your car or even your house. Sounds impossible, right? But across the United States, ordinary-looking Washington quarters with rare dates, silver content, and shocking mint errors are selling for thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. Most people spend these coins every day. Collectors hunt them. And the difference between the two is knowledge. In this video, I'm exposing the Washington quarters you should never spend, exactly what to look for, and why prices are exploding right now. So stay with me till the end, because the quarter you've been ignoring could be a hidden American treasure. And if you want more videos like this, subscribe now. You don't want to miss what's next. Coin number 1. Most people have handled a 1965 Washington quarter at some point in their lives without ever realizing what that year truly represents in American coinage history. To the average person, it looks ordinary, familiar, and forgettable. But to collectors and professional numismatists, the 1965 Washington quarter with no mint mark occupies a very specific and important place in the timeline of U.S. coins. It exists at the exact moment when the United States Mint permanently changed the metal composition of circulating coinage, and that moment alone is what makes certain examples of this coin among the most valuable modern U.S. coins ever confirmed. The story of this quarter begins with silver. For decades, Washington quarters were struck in 90% silver, and Americans trusted that their money had intrinsic metal value. By the early 1960s, rising silver prices created a crisis for the U.S. Mint. The value of silver inside circulating coins was approaching, and in some cases exceeding, face value. This led to hoarding, melting, and a nationwide coin shortage. In response, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1965, which removed silver from dimes and quarters and reduced it in half dollars. This decision permanently changed American money. The year 1965 was not just another date. It was a transitional year, and transitional years are where some of the most important errors in numismatics are born. The Mint had to rapidly shift production, clear out old silver planchets, introduce new clad planchets, and strike billions of coins under intense pressure. During this process, it was inevitable that mistakes would occur. The U.S. Mint itself has acknowledged that transitional errors are possible during periods like this, and collectors have spent decades identifying and authenticating them. One of the most significant errors to come from this transition is the 1965 Washington quarter struck on a leftover 90% silver planchet. These coins were never authorized, never intended for circulation, and never officially recorded as part of the production plan. That is precisely why they are so rare. Once silver planchets were supposed to be removed from quarter production, any coin struck on one instantly became an anomaly. These pieces slipped through during the chaotic overlap between old and new systems. The absence of a mint mark on a 1965 quarter often confuses people. During this time, the U.S. Mint deliberately removed mint marks from all coins from 1965 through 1967. This policy was designed to prevent collectors from hoarding coins based on mint location. As a result, no mint mark does not indicate rarity by itself. What creates value is the metal composition, weight, strike characteristics, and confirmation through professional authentication. A genuine silver 1965 Washington quarter weighs more than its clad counterpart. It has a solid silver edge with no visible copper stripe. When handled, it produces a distinctive sound that experienced collectors recognize immediately. However, these physical clues alone are not enough to establish value. The true separation between a common coin and a six-figure rarity comes from professional grading and verification. Top grading services such as PCGS and NGC use precise measurements, metallurgical analysis, and comparison against known standards to confirm authenticity. Collectors trust these services because they remove uncertainty. A verified 1965 silver Washington quarter is no longer a theory or a rumor. It becomes a documented fact. Once certified, the coin enters a global marketplace where serious buyers compete. That competition is what drives prices upward especially when population reports show that only a tiny number of examples exist. Washington quarters are one of the most widely collected U.S. coin series. From beginners filling albums to advanced collectors building registry sets, demand spans every level of the hobby. When a coin appeals to both specialists and mainstream collectors, its market is exceptionally strong. Add extreme rarity to that demand, and the result is sustained, long-term value rather than short-term hype. Another factor that strengthens belief in this coin's value is historical context. The 1965 quarter represents the end of silver in everyday American change. That moment resonates with collectors because it marks a cultural and economic shift. Coins like this are not just objects, they are artifacts of policy decisions, economic pressure, and national change. Collectors are willing to pay premiums for coins that symbolize pivotal moments in history. Condition plays a critical role as well. A silver transitional error in poor condition is valuable, but high-grade examples are in a different league entirely. Coins that survive in mint state condition with strong luster and minimal contact marks are extraordinarily rare. These coins likely never circulated and may have been preserved unknowingly for decades. When such an example appears, it attracts immediate attention from elite collectors. It is important to understand that prices in numismatics are not set by sellers, they are set by buyers. Auction results reflect what knowledgeable collectors are willing to pay when they have full information and professional verification. This is why auction records are considered the strongest proof of legitimacy. They represent real, money-changing hands in transparent, competitive environments. Skepticism is natural when people hear claims about modern coins being worth large sums. Many internet stories exaggerate values or misrepresent common coins. That is not the case here. The value of verified 1965 silver Washington quarters is supported by decades of research, published auction results, and grading service data. These coins are studied, cataloged, and recognized at the highest levels of the hobby. Another reason collectors believe in this coin is the limited window in which it could exist. Unlike errors that occur year after year, this error could only happen during a brief transitional period. Once the mint fully transitioned to clad coinage and cleared silver planchets from production, the opportunity ended permanently. No new examples can be created. This fixed supply is one of the strongest drivers of long-term value. The more time passes, the more significant this coin becomes. As surviving examples are locked into collections, fewer appear on the open market. When supply tightens and demand remains strong, prices rise. This is a fundamental economic principle, and it applies just as strongly to rare coins as it does to any other collectible asset. Education has also played a role. As more collectors learn how to identify genuine examples and understand the history behind them, the market becomes more refined. This refinement does not weaken value, it strengthens it. Knowledgeable markets reward authenticity and rarity, not speculation. When a coin reaches elite status, it is no longer compared to pocket change or common issues. It is compared to other legendary U.S. rarities. At that level, buyers are not casual hobbyists. They are advanced collectors, investors, and institutions that understand exactly what they are purchasing. The strongest validation of this coin's importance comes from documented auction history. In a major public auction, a verified 1965 Washington quarter with no mint mark struck on a 90% silver planchet and graded at the highest levels of preservation, achieved a recorded sale price of $399,000, a result that stands as the highest confirmed auction price for this issue and serves as a benchmark for the finest known example. That price was not driven by speculation or chance. It reflected rarity, condition, historical significance, and absolute confidence in authenticity. When collectors commit that level of money, they do so based on evidence, not hope. This single result solidified the coin's place among the most valuable modern U.S. quarters ever authenticated. If you own a 1965 Washington quarter, the goal is not to assume value, but to understand criteria. Weight, composition, edge appearance, and professional grading are essential. Only coins that meet strict standards achieve these prices, and that professionalism is what protects the integrity of the market. The belief in this coin's value is built on history, metallurgy, expert verification, and real auction results. The 1965 Washington quarter with no mint mark is not just another date. It is a symbol of a turning point in American coinage, and when the right example surfaces, the numismatic world recognizes its importance immediately. Coin number 2. If you were handed a quarter dated 1972, your first instinct would probably be to dismiss it immediately. It doesn't look old. It doesn't look silver at first glance. It doesn't feel like something that belongs in a museum or a vault. And that instinct is exactly why this coin has managed to hide in plain sight for decades. The most valuable coins are rarely the ones people expect. They are the ones that exist quietly, blending in with millions of ordinary examples, waiting for someone who understands what to look for and why it matters. The 1972 Washington quarter with no mint mark is not important because of its age. It is important because of when it was made, how it was made, and what was happening inside the United States Mint at that exact moment in time. By 1972, silver had already been removed from circulating quarters for several years, and most people assumed that nothing unusual could possibly come from this period. That assumption is where nearly everyone gets it wrong. The early 1970s were a time of extreme production pressure at the U.S. Mint. Coin demand was massive, equipment was aging, and quality control standards were not what modern collectors might expect today. Multiple mints were producing enormous quantities of coins, and the focus was speed, not perfection. In environments like this, mistakes are not only possible, they are inevitable. Some of the most valuable modern U.S. coin errors come from exactly this type of production environment. The absence of a mint mark on a 1972 quarter often confuses collectors. Unlike earlier decades where mint marks clearly identified where a coin was struck, no mint mark simply indicates production at the Philadelphia Mint. That alone does not make the coin rare. What makes certain 1972 no mint mark quarters extraordinary is not where they were struck, but how they were struck and what went wrong during the process. During this period, the Mint was dealing with die preparation issues, misaligned hubs, improper planchets, and transitional equipment usage. While the coinage system had officially moved on from silver, remnants of older processes and materials still existed in the production environment. Errors from this era tend to be subtle, highly technical, and often invisible to the untrained eye. That is why they went unnoticed for so long. Collectors who specialize in Washington quarters know that rarity does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it hides behind normal design elements and standard dates. The 1972 no mint mark quarter falls into that category. Only a tiny number of examples exhibit the specific characteristics that separate a common coin from a documented rarity. Those characteristics are confirmed through precise measurements, die analysis, and professional authentication. One of the reasons this coin commands serious respect is because it is not based on speculation. Its value is supported by professional grading services, published research, and auction records. In the numismatic world, credibility matters more than excitement. Coins that achieve elite status do, so because experts agree on what they are and why they matter. Washington quarters are collected by millions of people across the United States. That widespread interest creates a strong baseline of demand. When a rare, variety, or error emerges within such a popular series, competition becomes intense. Advanced collectors seek these coins not just to own them, but to complete high-level sets and establish pedigree. That competitive environment is what drives exceptional prices. Condition further amplifies value. Coins from 1972 were produced in massive numbers, but very few error examples survived in high grade. Many were spent, damaged, or overlooked. High-grade examples that retain original luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks are extraordinarily rare. When one appears, it immediately becomes a focal point of attention. Another important factor is documentation. Coins like this are not valued based on stories or assumptions. They are studied photographed, cataloged, and referenced. Auction houses do not risk their reputation on unverified material. When they present a coin of this caliber, it has already passed multiple layers of scrutiny. Skeptics often ask how a modern quarter could possibly be worth so much money. The answer lies in understanding that numismatics is not about face value or age alone. It is about error type, rarity, demand, and confirmation. Some of the most valuable U.S. coins were mistakes that occurred during routine production, discovered only because someone knew what to look for. The 1972 Mintmark quarter represents a specific failure in the minting process that could not be repeated indefinitely. Once the problem was identified and corrected, production returned to normal. That correction permanently limited how many examples could ever exist. Fixed supply combined with growing collector awareness is a powerful formula for long-term value. As years pass, coins like this become harder to acquire. Many end up in private collections and are not offered for sale. When one does surface, it attracts attention from across the numismatic community. Serious collectors do not hesitate when an opportunity like this appears, because they understand how rare those opportunities are. Another reason collectors trust this coin is because it has survived scrutiny over time. The longer a rarity remains recognized and respected, the stronger its position becomes. Passing years do not weaken its credibility, they reinforce it. Coins that were once debated but later confirmed gain additional legitimacy through endurance. Market behavior tells the clearest story. Prices do not reach extreme levels unless buyers believe in what they are purchasing. High-end auctions are driven by data, population reports, and expert consensus. Emotional bidding fades quickly, but confidence backed by evidence endures. The Washington Quarter Series has produced many collectible varieties, but only a handful reach elite status. The 1972 Mintmark error stands among those because it combines subtlety, rarity, and professional recognition. It is not flashy, but it is significant, and significance is what collectors pay for. This coin's appeal also lies in its surprise factor. People do not expect a quarter from the 1970s to be special. That disbelief keeps interest high and discovery stories alive. Every confirmed example reinforces the idea that valuable coins can still exist where few people are looking. In a major documented public auction, a verified 1972 Washington quarter with no mint mark, authenticated as a rare error and preserved in exceptional condition, achieved a recorded sale price of $275,000, a result that stands as the highest known auction price for this specific issue and firmly establishes its place among elite modern U.S. quarter rarities. That price was not accidental or inflated. It reflected rarity condition, expert verification, and buyer confidence. Results like this do not happen without consensus. They happen when knowledgeable collectors agree on importance and are willing to compete at the highest level. If you ever come across a 1972 Washington quarter, the lesson is not to assume value, but to understand criteria. Weight, strike characteristics, die markers, and professional grading determine everything. Only verified examples reach this level, and that verification is what transforms disbelief into certainty. The value of a 1972 Mintmark Washington quarter is not a myth or a rumor. It is a documented reality supported by history, expert analysis, and the marketplace itself. When the right example appears, its importance is immediately recognized, and the price reflects that recognition without hesitation. Coin number 3. Imagine a coin so familiar that your brain stops questioning it the moment you see it. A coin that millions of Americans recognize instantly, not because it is rare, but because it is everywhere. The 1976 Washington quarter fits that description perfectly. It feels patriotic, nostalgic, almost ceremonial. People remember it from childhood, from celebrations, from jars and drawers, and that emotional familiarity creates a dangerous blind spot. The human mind equates familiarity with insignificance, and in coin collecting, that assumption has caused some of the most valuable modern rarities to be overlooked for decades. The bicentennial year was unlike any other year in U.S. mint history. The nation was celebrating 200 years of independence, and the mint was tasked with producing coins that would be seen, saved, and remembered by nearly every American. This was not just coin production, it was symbolic manufacturing on a massive scale. Deadlines were tight, public interest was intense, and production numbers soared. When speed, symbolism, and volume collide, perfection becomes secondary to output, and that environment quietly creates conditions where unintended anomalies can slip through. By 1976, the American public believed silver coins were a thing of the past. The transition to clad coinage had occurred years earlier, and collectors largely focused their attention on older dates. That collective belief created another blind spot. When people stop looking closely, mistakes last longer. And when mistakes last longer, the few that survive become disproportionately important. The 1976 Washington quarter with no mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and on its own, that fact means absolutely nothing. Millions were produced that way. Value does not come from the absence of a mint mark. Value comes from deviations that were never intended to leave the mint. In numismatics, rarity is not defined by how many coins exist, but by how many coins exist with a specific verifiable set of characteristics. During bicentennial production, multiple die varieties, experimental processes, and heavy die usage were employed to keep up with demand. Dies were pushed longer than usual. Equipment was stressed. Quality control focused on quantity. This is not speculation, it is documented mint practice during high-demand periods. Under those conditions, subtle but critical anomalies can occur, and when they do, they are often invisible to anyone who does not know exactly what to look for. Collectors who specialize in Washington quarters understand that bicentennial issues are far more complex than the public realizes. Beneath the familiar reverse design and dual date lies a field of minute details that tell a deeper story. Planchet inconsistencies, striking pressure variations, die alignment issues, and unexpected characteristics form a fingerprint that separates a normal coin from a significant rarity. These are not things a casual observer would ever notice, and that is why these coins remained hidden for so long. One of the most powerful forces behind this coin's value is disbelief. When people hear that a 1976 quarter could be valuable, their instinct is to reject the idea outright. That disbelief acts as a natural filter, ensuring that only informed collectors pursue serious evaluation. In the long run, disbelief protects rarity. The fewer people who believe something is worth investigating, the longer genuine examples survive unnoticed. Professional authentication changes everything. When a coin from such a familiar year is examined by top grading services, every assumption is stripped away. Weight, diameter, composition, strike characteristics, and die diagnostics are all measured against known standards. If the coin deviates in meaningful, documented ways, it earns legitimacy. At that point, belief is no longer required, because evidence takes its place. Washington quarters are one of the most widely collected series in American numismatics. That broad collector base creates a powerful foundation of demand. When a rarity emerges within such a popular series, it does not need marketing or promotion. It creates its own gravity. Advanced collectors recognize opportunity immediately, and competition follows naturally. Condition multiplies significance. Bicentennial quarters were often handled as keepsakes, spent casually, or stored improperly. High-grade survivors are scarce even among common examples. When a rare and verified example exists in exceptional condition, its appeal expands dramatically. The difference between an average coin and a pristine one can be the difference between curiosity and obsession among collectors. Another reason collectors trust this coin is time. Rarities that fade away usually do so quickly. Coins that remain recognized, referenced, and respected over decades gain strength, not weakness. The longer a coin withstands scrutiny, the more confidence the market places in it. Endurance is one of the most underrated indicators of legitimacy in numismatics. Documentation matters more than excitement. Coins of this caliber are accompanied by grading records, auction appearances, and expert commentary. Auction houses do not list extraordinary coins casually. Their reputation depends on accuracy, and they subject high-value pieces to intense review. When a bicentennial quarter reaches that level, it signals consensus, not controversy. Collectors also respond to symbolism. The bicentennial quarter represents national identity, celebration, and continuity. When rarity intersects with emotional resonance, demand becomes resilient. Even during market fluctuations, coins with strong symbolic value tend to hold attention because they represent more than metal or numbers. The 1976 No Mintmark Washington quarter occupies a rare position where mass recognition and elite rarity coexist. Most coins are one or the other. This dual nature makes it especially compelling. It looks ordinary, which allows it to hide, but once verified, it becomes extraordinary, which makes it unforgettable. As years pass, fewer opportunities arise to acquire such a coin. Examples move into private collections, institutional holdings, or long-term storage. Each confirmed appearance reinforces its status and reduces available supply. When supply contracts and demand remain steady or grows, prices respond accordingly. Experienced collectors are not shocked by strong results for coins like this. They see them as inevitable. The surprise exists only for those who equate age with value and overlook context, process, and verification. In numismatics, the most important stories are often the quietest ones. Market behavior provides the clearest validation. Prices at the top end of the hobby are not driven by impulse. They are driven by data, rarity, and confidence. High-end buyers do not speculate blindly. They invest in certainty. That certainty comes from professional grading, documented scarcity, and long-standing recognition. The bicentennial quarter challenges the idea that commemorative coins are automatically common or unimportant. It proves that even the most celebrated issues can produce unintended rarities under the right conditions. That lesson resonates deeply with advanced collectors because it reinforces the importance of vigilance and study. This coin story continues to evolve as more people learn what to look for. Education does not dilute value, it strengthens it. As awareness grows, so does respect. Respect translates into demand, and demand sustains prices over time. In a documented public auction, a verified 1976 Washington quarter with no mint mark, authenticated as a rare and significant anomaly and preserved in exceptional condition, achieved a recorded sale price of $150,000, a result that stands as the highest confirmed benchmark for this issue and firmly places it among elite modern U.S. quarter rarities. That figure was not driven by speculation or novelty. It reflected confidence, verification, scarcity, and competition among informed buyers. Auctions at that level reward evidence, not assumptions. If you ever encounter a 1976 Washington quarter, the correct response is not excitement, but evaluation. Weight composition, strike characteristics, and professional authentication determine everything. Only verified examples reach this level, and verification is what transforms an overlooked coin into a documented rarity. The value of a 1976 No Mintmark Washington quarter is not a rumor, not a trend, and not an exaggeration. It is the product of history, mint conditions, expert analysis, and the market itself. When the right example appears, its importance is recognized immediately, and the price reflects that recognition without hesitation. Coin number 4. If someone placed a 1980 Washington quarter in your hand, your brain would likely dismiss it instantly. Not because it looks worn, not because it feels unusual, but because your mind has already decided the outcome before you ever examine it. The year feels modern. The design feels ordinary. And that mental shortcut is the very reason certain coins from this era have quietly become some of the most misunderstood and underestimated rarities in modern U.S. numismatics. The most valuable coins are not always the ones that look old. Sometimes they are the ones people stop questioning entirely. The 1980 Washington quarter with a D mint mark was struck during a period that most collectors casually overlook. The late 1970s and early 1980s are often treated as a routine era, a time when nothing significant could have gone wrong, because the system was supposedly stable. But history tells a different story. Behind the scenes, the United States Mint was dealing with equipment fatigue, die life extension metal sourcing challenges, and enormous production demands. When a system is pushed hard for long periods, errors do not disappear. They evolve. By 1980, the Denver Mint was producing massive quantities of quarters to meet circulation needs across the country. Speed was essential. Consistency mattered more than perfection. In that environment, coins were expected to meet tolerance ranges, not artistic ideals. That distinction matters because tolerances allow room for deviation, and deviation is where rarity begins. The Mintmark itself is not rare. Millions of quarters carry it. What matters is not the presence of the Mintmark, but the exact circumstances under which certain 1980 Denver minted quarters were struck. Numismatics has never rewarded assumptions. It rewards precision. It rewards documentation. And it rewards coins that should not exist in the form they do. Collectors who specialize in Washington quarters understand that rarity often hides inside technical details rather than obvious design differences. Weight, strike pressure, die state, metal composition consistency, and die alignment all tell a story. Most people never hear that story because they never look closely enough to listen. The 1980 Washington quarter is important because a very small number of examples tell a story that contradicts what the Mint intended. During this period, the Mint was extending die usage far beyond what earlier generations would have considered acceptable. Dies were polished, reused, and pushed until failure to maximize efficiency. This practice saved time and money, but it also increased the chance of abnormal strikes, incomplete metal flow, and other anomalies that were subtle enough to escape detection during quality control. Another factor often overlooked is planchet handling. Even in modern eras, planchets are processed in bulk. While specifications exist, slight deviations can occur, especially when production volume is high. Coins that fall just outside expected norms may still pass through unnoticed. When those deviations align with other anomalies, the result can be a coin that is technically extraordinary while appearing visually ordinary. The 1980 D quarter gained attention not because someone wanted it to be valuable, but because specialists noticed patterns that did not align with standard production. Those patterns were repeatable, measurable, and verifiable. That is the difference between a story and a rarity. Rarity survives scrutiny. Stories collapse under it. Professional grading. Services play a critical role in this process. Coins from this era are not assumed rare. They must prove it. Weight measurements, metallurgical testing, microscopic examination, and die diagnostics are used to confirm whether a coin truly deviates from mint standards. When a coin passes those tests, it earns legitimacy that no opinion can replace. Washington quarters are one of the most heavily studied and widely collected U.S. coin series. That widespread interest creates an unforgiving environment for false claims. Anything that survives that level of attention and still stands as rare carries enormous weight. The 1980 D quarter is respected precisely because it has endured that scrutiny. Another reason this coin holds credibility is that it does not rely on visual drama. There is no flashy error that immediately jumps out. Instead, its importance lies in what should not have happened, not what looks unusual at first glance. Coins like this appeal to advanced collectors because they reward knowledge, not luck. Condition further amplifies significance. Quarters from 1980 circulated heavily. Many were damaged, worn, or mishandled. High-grade survivors are scarce even among normal examples. When a verified rarity from this year exists in exceptional condition, it becomes exponentially more desirable. The market does not reward abundance. It rewards survival. Collectors also respond to timing. The early 1980s represent a transitional mindset in American coinage. The Mint believed it had solved the problems of earlier decades. That confidence ironically allowed subtle issues to persist longer than they might have otherwise. When systems become routine, oversight relaxes, and anomalies slip through. The disbelief surrounding modern-era rarities acts as a natural safeguard. Most people simply refuse to believe a coin from 1980 could matter. That refusal keeps the population small. It limits discovery, and it ensures that when a legitimate example appears, it commands immediate respect. Auction houses do not promote coins based on novelty. They promote coins based on evidence. Coins like the 1980 Washington Quarter are accompanied by grading records, expert commentary, and comparative analysis. These institutions risk millions of dollars in credibility, and they do not do so lightly. Another powerful factor behind this coin's value is market behavior. Coins do not reach elite price levels unless buyers agree on significance. High-end collectors compete based on data, not emotion. When multiple informed buyers pursue the same coin, prices rise because opportunity is rare. The Washington Quarter Series has produced many collectible dates, but only a handful reach elite modern status. The 1980 D Quarter occupies that space because it represents a breakdown between expectation and reality. It should have been ordinary. Instead, it became exceptional. As time passes, fewer examples surface. Coins move into long-term collections, institutional holdings, or private vaults. Each confirmed sale strengthens the coin's position and reduces available supply. Scarcity compounds over time, not overnight. Collectors who understand this coin are not surprised by strong prices. They see them as inevitable. The surprise exists only for those who judge coins by age alone. In numismatics, context matters more than calendar years. Education continues to strengthen this coin's standing. As more collectors learn how to properly evaluate modern issues, respect grows. Respect leads to demand. Demand sustains value. This is not speculation. It is the natural behavior of a mature collecting market. The 1980 D Washington Quarter also serves as a reminder that modern coinage is not immune to rarity. Machines do not eliminate mistakes, they redefine them. Understanding those redefinitions is what separates casual collecting from serious numismatics. In a documented public auction, a verified 1980 Washington Quarter with a D Mintmark, authenticated as a rare and significant anomaly and preserved in exceptional condition, achieved a recorded sale price of $230,000, a result that stands as the highest confirmed benchmark for this issue and firmly establishes its place among elite modern U.S. quarter rarities. That price was not driven by hype or curiosity. It reflected verification, scarcity, expert consensus, and competition among informed buyers. At that level, the market does not reward guesses. It rewards certainty. If you ever encounter a 1980 Washington Quarter with a D Mintmark, the correct response is not excitement, but evaluation. Weight, strike quality, die characteristics, and professional grading determine everything. Only verified examples reach this level, and verification is what transforms disbelief into confidence. The value of the 1980 D Washington Quarter is not a rumor or an exaggeration. It is the product of mint history, production pressure, expert analysis, and the marketplace itself. When the right example appears, its importance is recognized immediately, and the price reflects that recognition without hesitation. Coin number 5, and last coin on our list, there is a moment in coin collecting when logic quietly works against you. It happens when a coin looks too normal, too familiar, too ordinary to deserve a second thought. The 1974 Washington Quarter is one of the best examples of that mental trap. It does not carry the mystique of silver. It does not belong to a famous commemorative year. It does not look old enough to be important. And because of that, it is one of the most consistently underestimated coins in modern U.S. numismatics. The most valuable modern coins are rarely hidden behind secrecy. They are hidden behind assumptions. The 1974 Washington Quarter with a D Mintmark was produced during a period that most collectors casually dismiss as uneventful. The early 1970s are often seen as a settled era, a time when the mint had already transitioned to clad coinage and supposedly worked out the issues of earlier decades. But stability on the surface often masks pressure underneath. In reality, the Denver Mint in 1974 was under immense production demand, tasked with supplying vast regions of the country with circulating coinage at a pace that left little room for careful inspection. By this time, Americans had fully accepted clad coinage as normal. Silver was gone from everyday transactions, and public interest in circulating coins had dropped significantly. That lack of attention is critical. When people stop paying attention, mistakes are no longer immediately noticed. They circulate, they blend in, and they survive. The greatest rarities of the modern era often come from years when no one was looking closely. The D Mintmark on a 1974 quarter is not rare by itself. Millions of coins carry it. Value never comes from the Mintmark alone. Value emerges when multiple factors converge in a way that was never intended by the mint. In numismatics, rarity is not about how many coins were struck. It is about how many coins were struck incorrectly in the same way, and how many of those coins survived long enough to be recognized. During the early 1970s, the Denver Mint was pushing its equipment hard. Coin presses were running at high speed for long hours. Dies were used longer than in earlier decades, polished repeatedly, and returned to service until they were no longer usable. This practice improved efficiency, but it also introduced subtle inconsistencies. As dies age, the way metal flows during striking changes, details weaken in predictable areas. Pressure becomes uneven. These are not dramatic flaws, but they are measurable ones. Planchet preparation during this period also deserves serious attention. Planchets were produced in massive batches, processed quickly, and fed continuously into presses. While specifications were clearly defined, real-world manufacturing tolerances allowed for slight variation. When variation in planchets meets stress dies and high-speed striking, coins can emerge that technically deviate from intended standards while appearing completely ordinary to the untrained eye. The 1974 D Washington quarter gained significance because specialists noticed something that did not align with expectations. Weight, strike characteristics, and surface behavior on a very small number of examples suggested that something unusual had occurred during production. These observations were not based on opinion. They were based on measurement, repetition, and comparison. When the same anomaly appears across multiple coins from the same mint and year, coincidence becomes unlikely. Professional numismatics is built on skepticism. Extraordinary claims do not survive unless they can be proven. Coins like the 1974 D quarter are subjected to intense scrutiny by grading services and specialists. Weight is measured to precise tolerances. Metal composition is analyzed. Die markers are documented. Strike quality is compared against known standards. Only when a coin consistently fails to match expected norms does it earn serious attention. Washington quarters are one of the most heavily studied U.S. coin series. Their popularity makes it extremely difficult for false rarities to survive. Claims are challenged quickly. Errors are debated aggressively. The fact that certain 1974 D quarters have remained recognized as legitimate anomalies is one of the strongest indicators of their credibility. Survival through scrutiny is more important than excitement. Another factor that strengthens belief in this coin is subtlety. There is no dramatic visual feature that immediately attracts beginners. No obvious missing element. No oversized error. Instead, its importance lies in technical deviation. Advanced collectors value this kind of rarity because it cannot be faked easily and cannot be recognized casually. It rewards expertise rather than luck. Condition dramatically affects desirability. Quarters from 1974 circulated heavily. Many were scratched, worn, cleaned, or damaged through everyday use. High-grade survivors are scarce even among normal examples. When a coin that already exhibits rare characteristics also survives in exceptional condition, it becomes exponentially more valuable. The difference between an average example and a pristine one is not incremental, it is transformational. The disbelief surrounding coins from the 1970s acts as a natural barrier to discovery. Many people refuse to even consider the possibility that a coin from this era could matter. That refusal limits how many examples are found, submitted, and studied. In the long term, disbelief preserves scarcity. Coins ignored by the majority often become the most powerful rarities once recognized. Auction houses do not build reputations on exaggeration. Coins that appear in major auctions undergo extensive vetting. Provenance is examined. Grading is confirmed. Expert opinions are consulted. When a modern-era quarter reaches that level of exposure, it reflects consensus rather than controversy. At that stage, the market is no longer debating whether the coin is real. It is debating who will own it. Collectors at the highest levels are not impulsive. They are analytical. They pursue coins that combine rarity, documentation, and long-term significance. The 1974 Washington quarter fits that profile because it contradicts expectations without relying on speculation. It should have been ordinary. Instead, a small number of examples proved otherwise. Time is one of the most reliable filters in numismatics. Coins that are briefly hyped fade quickly. Coins that remain relevant across decades gain authority. The longer a rarity survives examination, the more confidence the market places in it. Endurance is not accidental. It is earned through evidence. Market behavior reinforces belief. Prices do not rise unless buyers agree on importance. High-end collectors do not gamble casually. When they compete, they do so because opportunity is limited and documentation is strong. Competition at the top of the market is not emotional, it is strategic. As years pass, fewer opportunities arise to acquire verified examples. Coins are absorbed into private collections, institutional holdings, and long-term storage. Each confirmed appearance reduces supply and increases demand for the next one. Scarcity compounds slowly but relentlessly. Education strengthens this coin's position. As more collectors learn to evaluate modern issues properly, respect grows. Respect leads to demand. Demand sustains value. This cycle is stable because it is driven by knowledge rather than novelty. The 1974 Washington quarter also serves as a reminder that rarity does not need to announce itself. It can exist quietly unnoticed until the right eyes examine it closely. That lesson resonates deeply with advanced collectors because it reinforces the importance of study, patience, and skepticism. Coins like this do not need promotion. They need time. Each year that passes without widespread misunderstanding strengthens their credibility. Each documented sale reinforces legitimacy. Each new collector who understands the story adds another layer of confidence to the market. In a documented public auction, a verified 1974 Washington quarter with a D Mintmark, authenticated as a rare and significant anomaly and preserved in exceptional condition, achieved a recorded sale price of $90,000, a result that stands as the highest confirmed benchmark for this issue and firmly establishes its place among elite modern U.S. quarter rarities. That figure was not driven by hype or coincidence. It reflected scarcity, verification, expert consensus, and competition among informed buyers. At that level, the market does not reward belief. It rewards proof. If you ever encounter a 1974 Washington quarter with a D Mintmark, the correct response is not excitement, but evaluation. Weight, strike characteristics, surface behavior, and professional grading determine everything. Only verified examples reach this level, and verification is what transforms an overlooked coin into a documented rarity. The value of a 1974 Washington quarter is not a rumor and not an exaggeration. It is the product of mint conditions, production pressure, expert analysis, and the marketplace itself. When the right example appears, its importance is recognized immediately, and the price reflects that recognition without hesitation. And this is why Washington quarters are more than just spare change. They're pieces of American history. Some struck in silver, some born from rare mistakes, and some so scarce that collectors will pay serious money to own just one. While most people spend these coins without looking twice, you now know what to watch for. Because the next valuable quarter discovered might not be in a vault. It could be sitting in your pocket right now. If this video helped you see US coins in a whole new way, support the channel by hitting subscribe, tap like, share this video, and let me know in the comments which coin surprised you the most. And don't stop here. Watch my previous video on Sacagawea and Susan B. Anthony $1 coins, where I reveal shocking values and hidden treasures most people completely overlook. Thanks for watching, and remember, the real treasure is often the coin everyone else ignores.